reviewing meal counting and claiming. So just so you guys know, we're kind of in the end here. We have this section, and then Sean will wrap us up with some other topics. So we're almost there. I know it's been a lot of information today, so hang in there. We're almost there, but it's all very important. Let's get started. So meal counting is very important as your school is receiving federal reimbursement for meals served to eligible students that meet program requirements. The amount of reimbursement a school food authority receives per meal will vary. This is based off the student eligibility we've been talking about. Those categories are free, reduced, and paid. It's also important that systems are in place to ensure that only one meal type per student per day is claimed. So for example, only one breakfast, one lunch, and so on. So for meals to be counted as a reimbursable meal, meals must meet meal pattern requirements, and this information must be documented on a production record. Meals must be served to enrolled students in your school, and they must be counted as the student leaves the line with the meal or receives the reimbursable meal. So the end of the serving line is considered the point of service. You'll hear me refer to that in the next few slides. The point of service is also referred to as the POS station or the POS. And again, this is after all foods that contribute to the meal pattern, even including fruit and veggie bars, have been offered to the students. An accurate point of service meal count is required. We'll talk about more specifically about the methods of counting meals in a few slides, but these daily meal counts must be accurately combined to equal the total for the month for each meal type. Then this monthly total is used to complete the claim for reimbursement. So as a bookkeeper, whether you're new joining us or whether you've been doing this, you may be the person who's responsible for the point of service meal count and identifying those reimbursable meals. Even if you don't operate the point of service on a regular basis, you may be asked to do so on occasion. So the role of this cashier person or point of service operator is very important, as this individual is ultimately responsible for identifying that the student is present with a reimbursable meal. You must also be familiar with the concept of offer versus serve if this is implemented in your school. Offer versus serve, or sometimes referred to as OVS, is a provision in the National School Lunch Program. Offer versus serve allows students to decline some food offered, which in turn can reduce food waste in the school meals program. This also permits students to choose the food they want to eat and reduced overall costs. We're not going to fully cover offer versus serve today in this training, but we do want to give you a little glimpse on how it works. So an example I can give you is at lunch, a student must be offered all 5 food components. Those components are grains, fruits, vegetables, meat alternates, and milk, and they all must be in the required portion sizes. Students must select a minimum of 3 out of the 5 of those components, and one of those component items must be half a cup of fruit or vegetable to yield a reimbursable meal. So again, if you're the person at this POS station or this point of service station, you're identifying the student, and then you're ensuring that the meal on their tray is a reimbursable meal. Your food service director will also be trained in offer versus serve, and they will share information with the point of service operator. It's really important to communicate with the food service director prior to each meal service so that you know how each food item credits towards a reimbursable meal. We're going to show in the next slide some resources for you and also in your handouts that are available on Offer versus Serve. So I just want to, just again, if you're new and you are going to be running the point of service this year, it's just a really good idea before each meal service, before breakfast, before lunch, or serving a snack, to meet with the food service director and say, hey, what's on the menu today? How is it contributing to the meal pattern? Just have a conversation with them and make sure you understand what the reimbursable meal looks like for that day. So in your handouts, we have provided some really great resources. At the top, you can see a link on the screen, and this link will take you to our meal pattern requirements page. And in this section, we have the Offer versus Serve manual, which is in the first picture. This manual will go into great detail, giving you the requirements and details about Offer versus Serve. Also, in the second picture, we have a 2-page explanation on the concept. This is a really nice resource to have in the kitchen or even with you at the point of service station. It's a nice handout that gives a lot of quick details that you can refer to. And the last picture shown is named Understanding the Difference Between the Menu Planner and the POS. So basically your menu planner is your food service director. They're the ones planning the meal for the day, writing the menu. And then again, the POS is that point of service person. So this helps guide you at that station. If again, you're not doing it every day, but you might be filling in or helping find people to fill in. Sometimes staff have other people doing it, but they all must be trained on the point of service and understand what their job is to identify the reimbursable meal. Also, another really important point to have is if the student is going through the point of service station and they do not have the required components on their tray, you must ask the student to go back and select additional items to make the meal reimbursable. So if you're that person and you're new and the student is coming to the station to be marked and you identify that they are missing a component, you would just ask the student to return back to the line or the fruit and veggie bar to take enough so that it qualifies as the reimbursable meal. If the student chooses not to select a reimbursable meal or they refuse to go back and take any additional items, then the meal cannot be claimed for reimbursement. At this point, the student must be charged a la carte pricing for the items on the tray. So you cannot include that in your reimbursable meals in your claim at the end of the month. So it's just really important, again, to know what makes up a reimbursable meal. And if the student doesn't have it at the time, then asking them to go back and select more items. This slide also on our webpage, you can find more information on meal counting and claiming. Sean briefly explained our website a little bit, but you can see under the meal counting and claims, we're going to work through some of the worksheets and attachments that you'll need for meal counting. To be eligible for reimbursement, school staff must accurately count the meals served to students at the POS and record these daily. So this requires meals to be counted again by that free, reduced, and paid eligibility. So if you're following along in the handouts, you can find those attachments and I'll go through some examples. So many schools have software systems in place that provide accurate meal counting. Some examples of this software systems include Power School or Power Lunch, Wordware. Infinite Campus is another one. Sycamore would be another software system. So these are systems that schools have purchased and are using to do their meal counting. There's an alternate option, sometimes in smaller schools or schools that don't utilize software. A roster checkoff system can be used. Both are done at the end of the service line and are acceptable. So after daily meal counts have been documented, the numbers are then entered into a monthly form. So right now we're going to take a look at attachment J. It's the edit check worksheet. We're going to look at the top portion of the worksheet if you want to follow along in your handouts. You have the choice of using two forms, the edit check worksheet here shown, otherwise known as attachment J. The daily meal count sheet form from your software program is also acceptable. Know which form you'll be using and ask if you're a new person, a new bookkeeper to this position, ask now the method that you'll be using so you know when school starts and you can ensure the documentation is being completed after each meal service. Attachment J is available as a PDF printable form or as an Excel spreadsheet on the meal count and claims page of our website. This form is completed for each day of the month with the daily counts recorded for each category. The total free, reduced, and paid meals for the month is then recorded in the corresponding total at the bottom of the column. This form can also be used for tracking adult meals, which must be recorded even though they cannot be claimed for reimbursement. If your software system provides the daily count of meals by category and compiles the totals for the month, then you can just print that form off from your software system and use that report. So you've entered in your days and your meal counts. Now let's look at the bottom portion of the edit check worksheet. This section is completed before submitting information for the claim in the CMP system. So again, everything that you're doing on this worksheet or you're compiling in your software report, you will need when we show you how to submit the claim in a few slides. It's basically a double check of accuracy in claiming numbers. If the school food authority is using a software system, it may have the capability of completing the edit check automatically or by selecting it in the system. Some software systems, I do want to mention, do not have this feature, and the edit check information must be completed manually. So some systems will give you the reporting, but it won't necessarily compile the information in this manner that you need. So you just need to know your system, you need to know what reports you use, and you need to know if you're getting all the information. And if you need help with any of that, you can reach out to us. We can help walk you through that. So on this bottom portion, let's take a look at the information that's required after you've entered the numbers in the top section. So we'll start with A. In A, and I do want to mention too, on this worksheet, when you pull it off our website, the instructions are on there. I'm just going to go through it as well, just because it's a lot of different information and we felt it was helpful. So in A is the number of serving days in the month that meals were served for each meal type. So you would enter that number in A. B is the SFA enrollment. This is the number of students that are enrolled in the school and have access to meal service. C Average daily attendance. This must be calculated to determine the average number of students in school on any given day. To do this, total of daily attendance for the month, then you divide by the number of days in the month. It's important to note that anytime you're calculating student numbers, such as average daily attendance or average daily participation, to round up to the nearest whole number. So again, an example would be if you're averaging 102.25, you would round up to 103, because it would be impossible to have 0.25 of a student. So you always want whole numbers there. Also, the average daily attendance must be calculated for each site. So if you have several sites that are serving meals, you'll need to complete it for each site. Then as we move down, letters D, E, and F are for recording the highest number of students eligible for free, reduced, and paid meals in the month. So you would record those numbers there. This is the highest number of free, reduced, and paid students. Erica talked a little bit about, or maybe it was Jenna, one of the girls talked about students changing categories during a month. So I do want to mention here, if a student changes categories during the month, they should be counted in both of the categories. An example would be Johnny is eligible for reduced meals at the start of the month. The household submits a new income eligibility application later in the month, and the determination is made now that Johnny is eligible for free meals. So you would add him to be counted in both reduced and free counts for this month. When we move on to G, we have on this side of the edit check sheet, there are some formulas that we need to figure out. So G is the attendance factor. Attendance factor is simply the average daily attendance divided by the enrollment. So C divided by B. Then as we move down, we get to H through J. This information, we determine the attendance adjusted eligibility for each category. So we've already determined the attendance factor right above in G, and the highest number of students approved by eligibility over to the left on D through F. So using the formulas, you can calculate each of those lines in H, I, and J. We'll look at a completed one here, but this form is useful because you're checking for two different things here when you fill this out each month. First, you're not exceeding the highest number of free, reduced, and eligible students on that day for the month. The second thing this form is looking at is the attendance adjusted eligible students by claiming category and comparing those to the daily meal counts. If the number of meals claimed in a category exceeds the count for attendance adjusted eligibility students for that day, the count must be circled or identified in some way, and the reason for the discrepancy must be documented either on this page or on a printout from your software. One of the reasons, a more common reasons why you might exceed that number on a particular day could be maybe attendance was really high and choosing to eat because it was the student's favorite meal. But if any of those numbers exceed, we must indicate that and give the reason why. So on the next slide, I have one that is filled out, so we can talk through that a little bit. So here is an edit check worksheet that is completed, attachment J. This is a completed edit check worksheet, and notice the asterisks on August 20th. So this is a day when both paid and free meal counts exceeded the attendance adjusted eligibility counts. So as you review, you need to indicate why these counts were higher. And so our reasoning is because it was a popular favorite entree that was served that day. This form needs to be filled out for each site. So if you have different sites in your district, you'll have a different form for each site. The claim needs to match the edit check worksheet. So be sure to print for your records prior to submitting the claim. If you're using the software report as your edit check documentation, also print that and keep that in your records. These are both things that we would look at in an administrative review, and they'll be used to verify your claim. So once you've done your edit check and verified that the counting has been done correctly, we're going to discuss a little bit about submitting a claim for reimbursement. We're not going to go into great detail on this section. You have been sent a claim guide. Sean talked about an application guide. There is also, an application guide. There is also a claim guide. These are really handy, even if you're a bookkeeper that's been here for a while. Sometimes, our systems change or things get updated. So this claim guide is really helpful if you're having any trouble or maybe entering in your first claim for the year. You can pull that out and follow along as well. I'm just going to briefly go through it. So we're looking at a picture of that CMP system, and we're in the school meals program. And off to the left at the top bar in blue at the top, we talked a lot about the application tab. So to do a claim, we're going to select the claims tab. And once you select the claims tab, you'll see that you can do a claim in the school nutrition program, S&P. And then additionally, there's different programs below that. You see the SSO, FFEP. You can look at claim rates. You can look at payment summaries and other information. So once you selected claims, we're going to go to claim S&P. You'll then proceed to select the month in which you would like to submit the claim. So for most of us on here, the first claim will be in August. So you would select August. Then it will prompt you to a screen that looks similar to this, and you're going to add an original claim. And down below, this is where you will see from your application, your sites listed. Ours, of course, just says site name is school, but yours would have your site name. It may say your elementary or your middle school or your high school. So select that by pushing add. And this will open up the claim worksheet. And this is where you're going to use your edit check worksheet or your edit check report from your software system to help you identify the numbers needed to submit this claim. So here you're going to enter the highest number of children approved for each category, G1 through G4, during the month to prevent an error on the claim. G5 will automatically calculate in the system for you. So you're just entering information in G1 through G4. Number of children approved for free meals, number of children approved for reduced price meals, number of children approved for paid meals, and then number of enrolled children. Then as you move down in the claim, You will see two different sections. The top section is NSLP. These are your lunch meals, National School Lunch Program. And the bottom section is the school breakfast program. In lines L1 and N1, I'm going to sort of talk together on the breakfast and the lunch because some of you might not serve breakfast or you might do both. But L1 and N1, you would enter the number of operating days for the month. In L2 and N2, you're going to enter average daily attendance. This is the total of daily attendance for the month divided by the number of days in the month. And remember, we're rounding up to the next whole number. In L3 and N3, we enter meals served. So line A are free breakfast or lunch meals served, depending on which category you're in. Line B are the reduced meals, and line C are the paid meals. On line D, the system again will calculate the total lunch and breakfast served, so you won't have to enter that one. If your site operates after school care program, a snack, the claims might look a little bit different depending if you do non-area eligibility or area eligibility, but you can see similar, you're entering the number of approved free snacks, approved reduced snacks, approved paid snacks, number of children enrolled, operating days, average daily attendance, and then serve snacks. So that's for the non-area eligible. If you're area eligible, it's a little bit less information you're entering. But once you're done on the breakfast, the lunch, or the snack, you've entered all your information. You'll scroll down to the bottom, and in this slide, you'll see the Save button in red, and you would select Save. So then you'll go back and you'll repeat these steps for all the sites that you're claiming meals for that month. And when all the sites have been entered, you'll click the red Continue button at the bottom of the sites list. Next, a certification box will appear. You'll need to check the certification box and select Submit for payment at this point. And once submitted, a confirmation page will display, and that is shown on the bottom portion. You need to click Finished on this one. Sometimes this is a step that gets skipped or missed. People think Submit for payment, I'm done, and they close out and you haven't finished. So be sure that you click Submit for payment, wait for the confirmation, and then select Finished. The claim must be in accepted status in order to be paid. So on the screen, on the left-hand side, you'll see the claim information. It lists the claim month. It also lists the date received, the date accepted, the earned amount, and the status. You can see on the right, we're in the claim, and this was our summary where we selected the month. I want to point out, like November, you can see that there was an error there. Again, maybe you didn't click the last button. Maybe you entered information wrong and it's giving you an error. You'll see that when you click out and go to the summary, and you want to make sure it says accepted, like on the bottom in May. If it does not say accepted, it will not get processed. So if you see an error, you would click back into the month and find the error. Some important reminders when entering claims. The claim must the claim can be submitted anytime after the final meal or final snack of the month has been served for the claim month. So after the last service of that month, you can start to enter the claim. Every month, reconcile claim payments with your bank statement. Make sure you're checking what the payment, that the payment was paid in full. And a reminder on that claim status in CMP, it must show accepted in order to be processed and for the payment to be made. If the claim status is shown as validated or pending, this means that the claim has not been submitted for payment. Again, you'll need to return to CMP to complete the certification step required to submit the claim. Another good thing to mention is that maybe you've entered the claim and it's in accepted status. Claims that are in accepted status can be modified. So if you've come to the determination that you needed to go back in and make a modification, you will need to resubmit after you've made the changes and make sure that, again, after you go in and modify and submit, that it says accepted. Even if you went and clicked modify after it was accepted and you didn't make any changes, if you click on modify, you still have to resubmit it. So sometimes too, we'll find that maybe someone was they were gonna go modify something and then they decided they didn't need to. You would still need to go back in and resubmit the claim. The last date to submit a claim is 60 days following the month covered by the claim. So on the screen here, again, I'm on our nutrition services webpage. Over on the quick links on the left side, we have a section for claim due dates and payment dates. This is updated every year. Be sure to print this chart. If you're the bookkeeper, I would have this chart printed out so you know the last day for submission. It's a really good habit just to get in the habit of submitting your claim at the end of each month. But I understand things happen and maybe they don't get submitted right away. But you do have 60 days following the month covered by the claim. So this chart will help you identify that. You can see in my example on the chart, the claim is for the month of February, so it must be submitted no later than April 29th. So again, a really handy resource to print off and keep with you at your desk. I'll touch a little bit on some additional reimbursement and explain that. So along with regular meal reimbursement, additional reimbursement is provided for the following, and this includes an additional 8 cents performance-based reimbursement, which is paid when all meal pattern requirements regarding components are met, such as vegetable subgroups and the whole grain rich requirements. Just a reminder that this reimbursement can be shut off if the SFA is not in compliance. Schools are also paid what is called a state match for breakfast and lunch. And these matches are paid out one time per year, and it's typically seen in your payment summary in the spring. Additional reimbursement is also provided for severe need breakfast. And that's if at least 40% of NSLP lunches served to students the second preceding school year were at the free and reduced reimbursement. The free and reduced rate of reimbursement. NSLP additional qualifying 2 cents is if at least 60% of the lunches served at the second preceding school year were at the free reduced rate. I think this last slide, Sean mentioned a couple times, and so did Erica, we don't have the 24-25 reimbursement rates yet. We're expecting them any day now. So that will be updated also on our webpage. This slide shows you, again, under those quick links, you can find reimbursement rates once they've been updated. And all the reimbursement rates, the regular ones, plus the additional ones I just went through, will be on there. And lastly, I have one last reminder. Each school district is responsible for setting their own meal prices. And this, again, you'll get some guidance from our office once reimbursement rates are established. But I do want to mention meal prices for reduced meals. There is a maximum price that can be charged for a reduced price meal. The maximum price for reduced breakfast is 30 cents, and the maximum price for a reduced lunch is 40 cents. And then accordingly, a maximum price for reduced after school snack is 15 cents.